Well, we've just come upon these couple of beauties. I'll give a closer look up to both of them. This one will give us more of a front-on look. This is pink lady slippers. This is one of our really showy orchids that you find in the woodlands. And what's very interesting about these flowers, if you take a closer look at these, another name for these very showy orchids is moccasin flower. So if you imagine you had your foot and you slipped it right in the middle of this, it would fit just like a moccasin. I don't think the focus is working for me here. But what's interesting about these orchids is that they have a nice perfume. They're very showy. It attracts bees. Bees won't make the mistake more than a couple of times of going in, because once they do, they crawl into this opening here. They get inside and they think they're going to find nectar, and they don't. And so they start looking for daylight, which means they have to crawl out of a different spot than they came in. That's what actually pollinates the plant. Unfortunately, bees learn by their behavior, and so these orchids really are having a difficult time in getting properly pollinated. That's one of the reasons why, even though they're widespread throughout the Northeast, they don't often bloom. And when they do bloom, they don't often necessarily produce seed. So it's very important that orchids are always protected, never picked, left alone, so everyone can enjoy these absolutely gorgeous flowers. Pink lady slipper. Well, I thought these would be done, but fortunately they're still in bloom. You can see they're kind of withering up. These are fringed polygala, or polygala, and gay wing is another name for it. But the petals are starting to wither. The ones that are drooping, those are actually the ones that give the appearance of the bloom that looks like a little airplane. You can see the motor out front, what would have been the wings of the plane. Very colorful wildflower. Just a really beautiful one. These are definitely winding their way up. And of course, keeps good company right next to it, another of our pink lady slipper. Now, as we can see, we have a nice cluster of ferns here. The vegetative fronds are the ones that are out in the forming kind of a circle around this middle one. The middle one is what's referred to as a fertile frond. So this is its reproductive capability here. This will be putting on spores. And this one is turning more and more that brown color that gives it its name. This is cinnamon fern. Very common woodland, particularly in kind of damp soils. Cinnamon fern. And we've come upon another of our ferns that enjoy kind of damper woodland areas and settings. You can see the really fine leaves and leaflets. Actually, each one of these is a leaf, and these much smaller individual green leaves look like. These are actually leaflets, and this whole thing then makes the frond. So this little collection here is royal fern. And in the fall, it has a very distinctive, a really coppery color to it. Beautiful fall color. This is royal fern. I hope no one's running to grab a knife and start putting some sugar in a pot on the stove. This is not rhubarb. I can't emphasize this enough. This is not rhubarb. These big leaves, if this had scratch and sniff technology, you'd know instantly. This is skunk cabbage. And really enjoys these wetland soils around here. Quite a few of it around. Skunk cabbage. And now we're here at the other end of the property, very close to the school grounds. And in this wetland area that comes through this draw through the property, you can come across this very small white 4-part flower. This is Pennsylvania bittercress, and it enjoys wetland habitats and really kind of almost open water type habitat. Pennsylvania bittercress. And we're walking on our way back, but notice on the side of this tree, we see some of the bark has been scraped off. And as we've learned from our good friend Frank Berlin, this was a buck of a white-tailed deer last fall. I was rubbing late summer, early fall, rubbing the velvet off of their antlers. That's what he'd like you to believe. My money's on Frank was out here probably with his pocket knife a day or so ago, knowing that we were going to be out here. But in fairness to him, that is a buck rub. Now we've come upon a little mayapple forest, and we have one that's a nice specimen here that's in bloom. See that 6-part flower, and the plant has 2 leaves on it, which this is a 2-year or biennial plant. It flowers in year 2, puts on 2 leaves in year 2, and this is the same species, mayapple, in year 1, just 1 leaf. So it blooms in the second, puts on a large kind of marble-sized, cherry tomato-sized fruit, and if you're lucky enough to pick it when it's ripe, translucent yellow come mid-August. It's very aromatic and very kind of a exotic fruit flavor to it. This is mayapple.